Texas Rangers All-Star closer Joe Nathan. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you guys. How's everybody doing?
Well, we'd be doing better if it was a 9-game winning streak, but I hope you understand how we're a little sad about that.
You guys are getting spoiled over there for sure.
Well, it's partially spoiled. I also feel like we've been walking through the desert of baseball goodness for 6 years, and so now I'm desperate to get to that oasis, and an 8-game winning streak felt pretty darn good.
Absolutely. These guys are, I think they're obviously primed to not only get to the playoffs, but obviously now with, I think the way their team was set up and now with the moves that they've made, they're set up to go deep into the postseason. So, I think I think the excitement there is where it should be, and I'm sure the fans are ready for some postseason baseball as well.
Joe, I know different players are different in this answer to this question. When did you start looking at standings and how many games you need to catch up or how many games you're up on your competition? Right now, obviously, the Rangers are up 2 games on the Astros.
I think it's one of those where obviously it depends how close the race is, first of all. But usually after that trade deadline and you get into the, latter third of the season, I think guys start to at least kind of see where they're at, what they're going to need to do, see how many games they're either going to, need to come back from or just hold on, and for me, it's, you don't want to go into those situations where you're like, let's just hang on to it. So it's one of those where you just want to keep pushing forward and play each series, try to win each series. And then you get to September and that's when the push comes in. And, but again, you can't look too far ahead. You gotta play each series one at a time. And I know it's cliche, but that's usually what players are looking at is win 2 out of 3, win 2 out of 3, win 2 out of 3. And then you get to the end of the season and hopefully where you need to be.
Joe Nathan joining us here on the K&C Masterpiece on 105.3 The Fan. 80 saves in 2 years for the Rangers from 12 to 13. Joe, whenever you're in the bullpen all game long and you're like, hey, we got to go get this win for this team, can you describe the mentality of being a closer, like what the difference is for any other humans out there?
Well, I compare it to a kicker with a last-second field goal, with, down by 2, and it basically comes down to that one kick. And for the closer, you're watching a ball game, you're seeing what your teammates have been doing, and, you got a close ball game, and it's just going out there and ride the adrenaline rush and use that to your advantage. For me, people were like, did you like the nerves? I was like, yeah, of course. I was like, I think without that, for me, I wouldn't have been able to get myself to that level of play that I did. If there was no adrenaline, I don't think my fastball would have been as good. My breaking balls wouldn't have been as sharp. So, for me, that was something that I needed. And I said, if that ever went away, I knew I'd be done in the game. So, that's the only thing I could really compare it to. Kickers get to go out there a couple of times during the game, so they kind of have practice leading up to that final kick. But that final kick is very comparable.
And Joe, 6-time All-Star as a closer. And, ever since you left the Texas Rangers, and it's been a decade now since 2013, the Rangers have not been able to have a closer through this kind of 10-year period after you left. Guys have done great in a setup role, then they come in and they're like, all right, you're the closer now. We need you to shut down games, and they do it for a little bit, but the pressure gets to them, and then they have to kind of be alleviated of that position. When did you know, 2002, 2003 with San Francisco, that you wanted that pressure, that you needed that pressure that you just talked about to be at your best?
I guess I kind of felt it in 2003 when I was setting up for the Giants. But then I think I quickly learned that the difference in the two, there's there's some things with the setup role that I think are more difficult. You know, you tend to have to come into situations to face their best hitter at certain times. It could be in the 7th inning or the 8th inning. And that could happen in the 9th as well. But a lot of times it seemed like the setup guys were coming in to get those big outs. The difference, though, when you get to the 9th inning, which I found out, is there's nobody behind you in case you don't have your stuff that night. So, you know, as a setup guy, I would come in and, you know, if I just didn't have it that day, I had a closer coming in behind me that could pick me up. And in the 9th inning, if you don't have your stuff, you're usually walking into the clubhouse with an L. So, you know, the pressures are there for both sides of it. The difference is just no defense behind you as a closer. So, you know, I've seen very good setup guys struggle in the closer role, and I've also seen them thrive when they do get there. So it's just a matter of going out, doing it, and see what you got. So, you know, for me, I didn't know until probably after the 2004 season when I had a chance to go out and do it for a season.
Have you been asked to give a TED Talk or anything like that to the Rangers? Because our bullpen has kind of struggled this year, although it's been better the last week or so.
You know, it's all about timing. You know, if these guys can get on the right page and get on a run, this will be the time to do it. So, you know, you got to kind of, you know, I have not been asked to come out and talk to anyone, but it's one of those situations where if you could just erase what you've done to this point and start new and just get on a run going into, you know, obviously August into September and ultimately, hopefully, into October.
You worked with Mike Maddox for a couple of years, right?
Yes.
All right, so we always wondered this too. Like when he walked out and he puts his arm on your shoulder, was your first thought like, "Hey, don't touch me," or were you just like, "Okay, I understand what he's doing"? And what was his message? Like, what was he always trying to accomplish with you?
You know, with Mike, you know, I just learned and I learned who he was and what he was all about, and I loved everything he did. You know, I loved our pitchers meetings. I loved him, you know, how much he talked to us and just tried to figure out who we were too. Because I think what he ultimately does when he comes out to the mound and puts his hand on your shoulder is try to get your pulse.
Okay.
You know, and some guys, that pulse needs to be high. And some guys, that pulse needs to be really relaxed and low. And, you know, that's the big thing about probably being a pitching coach is figuring out who needs what, who needs a kick in the pants, who needs to be coddled a little bit, and figuring out each guy that's on, you know, in your staff. You know, for me, it probably changed on a night. You know, I think there's some times where I was super high energy and probably need to be brought down a little bit. And then there was probably some nights where I was, you know, kind of dragging a little bit and he needs to kick me in the pants a little. So, you know, he would come out, put his hand on your shoulder, and that's basically what he's doing is checking your pulse. So it's you know, for me, the best meeting we had, he came out and I actually beat him to the punch and put my hand on his shoulder. So he didn't say anything. He just turned around and walked back to the dugout. He said, he's good. He's ready to go.
Joe, as a reliever / closer, there's not time to go into the dugout and gather your thoughts if an inning doesn't go your way to make adjustments. What would be one of the things that you would have to mentally say to yourself about possibly, like, let's say a mechanical flaw that you'd have to try to get out of that situation very quickly to get the next guy out?
Keep it simple. You know, it's one of those things during an inning. When you're in the middle of it, you're not going to be able to change a lot of major things out there. You know, that's going to have to be something you're going to have to work on in between outings. So when you're out there, keep it simple. For me, I think the greatest thing advice I got all the time, Rick Anderson was really good about coming out and just keep it simple. Like for me being taller, a lot of times when I got in trouble, I was just leaking a little bit forward. So for me, my big cue is just get to the balance point. And if things are going a little awry, maybe slow things down a little bit. You know, obviously you don't want to be too slow to the plate with base stealers, but at the same time, throwing strikes is way more important.
Let me ask you this. As a guy that maybe that night doesn't have a breaking ball and you're recognizing it quickly, do you say to yourself, I just need to show this son of a gun and then go back to my fastball? Or would you say, I'm going to get this breaking ball tonight?
Well, that's a good question. I think I go back to a night in Chicago, and this was early in the year in April, and I think the temperature was around 35 degrees, but the wind chill made it feel like it was 20 degrees out there. Super cold night. Couldn't feel fingertips. And I knew once I started warming up that it felt like I was throwing an ice cube to the plate. So
Wow.
I knew my breaking stuff was not going to be that good. So my thought was, let's just go out and keep throwing fastballs. And these guys are going to eventually think I'm going to throw a breaking ball, because I usually do. And I just, I kind of kept it hidden that I didn't have a breaking ball that night, and got through it with just throwing fastballs. So for me, it's better to have them think you still have a breaking ball than to show them that you don't have a breaking ball.
That is a tremendous answer right
It could
there.
still be there.
Talking with Joe Nathan right here on 105.3 The Fan. We kicked this around a little bit before the trade deadline in terms of before the Rangers got Max Scherzer, there was discussions with Justin Verlander. I know moving teams is a nature of the business, but like when you were with the Giants and if they said, hey, you're going to get traded, or hey, this, do you ever think, please don't trade me to our rivals? Like, please don't trade me to the Dodgers, because we've grown a healthy dislike of that other team.
Well, I mean, most of the time, fortunately, we don't hear about what's going on until it's done. Obviously, in Max's case, I think it was something he had to approve. So, obviously he heard about before the deal was finalized. But I mean, I would. It's definitely an unusual circumstance to get traded to a rival in division. Usually, you won't see teams do that. Probably more so because they don't want to see them playing against, their own squad down the road and maybe hurting them. But, I think for players' sake, it's probably a tough situation, especially if you ever had bad blood in that other clubhouse. To go to a team like that, it would definitely be awkward.
So Derek Collins sometimes works with us. I'm wondering, in your 2 years here in Texas, who was your favorite teammate?
Man, I was blessed those years there. Our whole staff was really, really fun. Shoot, the whole team was fun to hang out with. Adrian had the party at his house one time during an off day, and I mean, it seemed like everybody showed up. So we had really good camaraderie. I hung out with Derek quite a bit, going to hockey games during spring training, hanging out with his dog Wrigley, and then, guys like Scott Feldman and all those dudes. I mean, we just had a fun clubhouse, guys that, brought back like Kangaroo Court and stuff like that so we could have laughs. And it was just an entertaining club to be around. So I enjoyed my time over at Texas as well as anywhere.
Did you have a least favorite teammate? No, I'm just kidding.
No chance.
Okay.
No chance.
All right.
That squad was, like I said, it was really good. Like, we had 25 guys on that club that loved to hang out with each other and get to the clubhouse and go to work.
Man, we appreciate your time very, very much, good sir. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.